And well, basically, welcome to the Metrics Basics workshop. My name is Regina, and I'm an instructional design manager with Sumo Logic. I've been at Sumo for 2 years and initiated my career back in the, I don't know, I'm gonna say, but as an on-site engineer, and then quickly swift into learning and development, where I have spent most of my professional career so far. So I'm very excited to be here again, back in the teaching position to show you the goodness of the metrics UI within Sumo Logic. Before I start, go into the content of the workshop, I would like also to know a little bit about you. There are certain tools in the Zoom that I'm pretty sure at this point, after a year of pandemic, everybody's kind of acquainted to, but just in case, if you can see the participants tab on the bottom of your screen, you will be able to locate your name, and there is going to be a more option here where you can rename. So if you feel comfortable, you can change your name or change your name. No, it will be nice to change your name, but you can add your company name to your name if you are with a company you're representing today, or if you don't want to do that, but just tell us a little bit about yourself. Maybe where are you located? If you don't want to use the rename function, you can use also the chat for that. And that will allow everybody to see who is in the room and, kind of recover a little bit that networking component that we always say when we come to one of these conferences. So that would be great. Let me see. People are using. Can I see some participants list? Anybody taking on that? Awesome. I can see some people. Great. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm hoping that you are enjoying Illuminate today. That's that. And then, of course, I wanted to keep it interactive as much as possible. We have an hour to cover a lot of concepts here. So at any given time, I usually check points on parts of the walkthroughs where you are in the labs. If you can always give me a thumbs up or a green check mark, or red if it's not a positive thing. But basically, feel free to use the reactions that are also located in the bottom of your screen to tell me that things are good over there. Perfect. Okay, so with that said, the first question everybody has is, where are the materials? So I'm going to do now is to put in the chat a copy of the materials. I'm going to first post the copy of the slides, and they won't show you, they won't appear in the chat until finish loading. That takes a little bit. And then I'm going to upload a copy of the lab, so you have that handy. And once you can see it in the chat and you can start the downloads should go really fast. Give me a thumbs up to make sure that I know that you have the materials with you. If at some point you need to drop or something that covered too fast, you can always use that material to go back into the training lab environment and then redo the steps. Okay, that's taking a little bit longer than I expected. Okay, that I'm not gonna start watching that. It will be showing up as soon as it's loaded in the chat. And also, I will make sure it makes it to the resources page on the Illuminate platform, so you can download from there as well later. But I will try to post this now as I'm doing, and then also at the end of the presentation. But I don't want to, watch paint dry. So let's gonna keep going, and then you will be, hopefully when we get there, you already have the materials available to you. So what we are gonna cover today, basically this is a course or is a workshop that is kind of geared towards people that are actually new to Sumo, or that probably have used Sumo for a while, but only have limited themselves to use the log search and so forth. So very basic. Has everybody used the Metrics Explorer and the Metrics UI in the past? If you can give me some thumbs up or, okay, I have 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we have some people that know a little bit and some people that, brand new. So that's great. So I think this will help you both if you have used logs. The Metrics Explorer view is very similar, have similarities, but we'll see what's specific for metrics. So we're going to cover the metrics basics first, and we are going to go through a walkthrough of the whole interface. And then we are going to go into how you can quickly gain benefit from Sumo right away without not knowing query language or anything like that. So very straightforward with a basic search mode, how you can get, and with our apps, how you can get the most out of the platform. And then we're going to wrap that all those concepts with, like, well, now that you have all this information, what do you do about it? So the unified, how to create a simple alert. That's where we will wrap it up and then get to the next steps. So shall we? So for those of you that are new to Sumo, basically we usually start most of our classes with the Sumo logic data flow. If you have attended the security workshops, you probably have seen the security pipeline. So it's just basically to give you a high level overview of how the data flows from your environment to Sumo and then back to you in the form of visualizations such as dashboards. So the first step is usually the data collection. This is how, in a nutshell, how basically the data gets from your environment to Sumo. We use a series of elements called collectors and sources, and we set them up depending on what your environment, what you want to follow up or what you want to monitor in your environment. And that sets up the data to be sent to or be ingested by Sumo. In today's workshop, because we have an hour, this can be a very intensive topic because I always said garbage in, garbage out. So how you set data collection, it's important to be mindful about it. And there are a lot of different variables that you need to take into account. If you want to know more information about how to set the collectors and sources for metrics, there is the Metrics Mastery Search Jam. And if you missed that already, I think we have some upcoming sessions after Illuminate as well as the recordings. So it should be easy for you to get to that information. Once the data is in Sumo, we go and move on into the search and analyzing. All that we used to call it the tsunami of data. All that data can be overwhelming. So like I said, depending on what you get is what you're gonna get out later. So you need to be smart about how to search and distinguish what is meaningful, what is not, and then being able to analyze it. The good thing about this workshop is that we're going to show you how to do that pretty quickly with some of the apps that we have available out of the box. And then the third step is the visualization and the monitoring. I think that you can have all the analyzing you want, but if you don't know how to present or communicate that information, sometimes you don't know how to act on it. So the visualizations and the dashboards that you can produce after you have search and analyze data is kind of what the surface is, like what everybody see, right? And then of course there is the monitoring. One of the things about metrics is that the more you work with them, you start capturing the value of how you can use metrics to tell you, or yeah, I would say how to tell you how to prevent probably problems in the future once you have observed something for a long period of time. And that brings me to, well, what is a metric? I think that when you start with metrics, there is always a kind of a confusion about what is a metric compared with a log. And basically the keyword here is over time. A metric is a set of data points that measure the value of something over time, and that is the critical component. So if you want a day-to-day example of that, for example, you probably are waiting yourself after the pandemic every week or every day. Well, now that you have those data points through a period of time, you can call that a metric. If you only have an event or the record of an event that happened, well, probably a year ago, but you don't have the evolution of that data point for a period of time, then it's not a metric. It probably is just an isolated event. So how that applies to your environment? Well, if you have well-defined performance metrics, you can use metrics to gain visibility to your application performance, to your infrastructure, determine why a problem happened, or even predict if a problem will happen in the future based on the historical data that you have. Okay, so I said that I wasn't going to cover collection, but there's a couple of concepts that I think is important, and kind of one of the reasons why we put this workshop together. Basically, when you ingest metrics data into some logic, it's important to understand the volume of the metrics that you're going to ingest or that are being ingested. So for billing and reporting purposes, the data volume for metrics is measured in data points per minute, or DPMs. Why is this important to know? Because when you reach the limit of your DPMs, the data will be cached on the host and the source will be throttled. And then you will start seeing, the spinning wheel going and going. So this is important to kind of be aware of. And the reason why we bring it to light here is because most of the customers, actually, when we have looked into our customer usage, are not using, or not even coming close to using, all the DPMs that are available into their account. So let me stop for a moment and then get into Sumo. And let me stop the presentation here. I didn't mean to stop I always do this, stop presenting. Let me share back again. But this time I want to share my Sumo Logic interface, and we'll get into it. I would share some login information so you can also look into our training environment. But basically, if you go to the left navigation bar, there is the administration, and then underneath that, there is the account tab. And then usually here it tells you your consumption in terms of credits and whatnot. I'm not gonna go into the details on how to read this. I would definitely refer you to your customer support manager or your account representative, because the calculation of the DPMs will vary depending on the metric source that you are using. So it will depend on, the answer will be always would depend on what you have, right? But I just wanted to let you know, bring visibility to that. And that's kind of one of the, again, one of the main reasons why we put this workshop together, because we want to encourage you to start, if you haven't yet, your journey with metrics, and then take advantage of all the DPMs that might be still available for you in your account. Okay. The other concept that is important to be aware of is metric ingestion. So let's say that you start ingesting metrics today. Sumo won't ingest any metric data that is more than a week old. So that's a good thing to know when you start, so you know where the history starts and what to track from. And then the other concept that is also important to highlight here is the metric retention. So sometimes you need this information for auditing purposes, or just really to see how your environment is evolving or how it's behaving and all that stuff. And then you might need to go several months back. So with Sumo Logic, the metrics data is stored in raw and 1 minute and 1 hour resolutions. The raw data is stored retained for 7 days. The 1 minute resolutions for 30 and the 1 hour resolutions for 13 months, which sounds reasonable. So if you want to go back a year, you could definitely do that in 1 hour increments. Okay, so that is as much as I'm going to talk about, collection and things that you really need to know when you're planning to ingest metrics data. The next step is really kind of takes us to kind of get familiar with Explorer, the metrics Explorer view, and what we can do with basics, with basic query modes, and what we can. I'm going to give you a walkthrough, and you actually will do it with me, so hopefully. Through the interface and what you can see there and what your options available. So this is just a screenshot, a little quick to show you, how the basic query mode will look like, how the interface will look like. And then if you are already an experienced user, as some of you already have mentioned or have indicated, basically also have a lot more complex mode where you can write your own queries if you're familiar with a query language and you feel comfortable with. And then we're also going to play a little bit with metrics operators. There's quite a few of them available. I think Lori probably will put the link into the chat for where you can find information about all the metrics operators and how they behave. We're going to work with just 1 or 2 of them today, just to give you a taste of how powerful the interface can be. Okay, so I think that after me talking for a while, we are ready to see metrics in action. So the first thing I want to do is please confirm that you have a copy of the student lab. If you can put that in the chat, give me a thumbs up. And also, Lori have put the same information that you have in the screen on the chat so you can copy and paste. Basically, we're providing you with a training lab environment where you can, do all the exercises, and this will be available with this password all the way to the end of the month, which is in 2 days. October, the password will change, but if you log into the platform, we'll tell you at the time what the password, the new password is for. Oh, and I can see that some people already been on other classes because they're going to the next step. Putting the number that you choose so nobody can choose your own. Just be mindful that those numbers are recycled. So if you probably use it before in a class before, then you will go to the window and see the same thing you had. Or if somebody took it over, you will see other windows open. We'll clean that up when we get there. Perfect. Awesome. So I think everybody has a number. Is everybody able to log in? Give me a thumbs up. Okay. Okay, yeah, Lori is going to help you if you need, again, the copy of the student labs. But hopefully you can follow with me, so don't stress too much, okay? So try to just, follow along, pay attention. You can always do the lab later. The steps are very detailed, so shouldn't have any problem following on your own. So let me get out of here and then get into my Sumo account. So like I said, when you log into Sumo, you might have already tabs open. You can quickly clean that up. I always like to start with a fresh canvas and then click on any of the tabs that you might have already open and then choose close all tabs. And that will get you back to like our 0.0. Okay. So if you have the student lab guide at this point open, at this point, we are on lab number 1, step 1. And we're basically just going to show you the Explorer interface and show you what are the choices that are available for you there, how you can play with them a little bit, and so forth. So it will be very straightforward. Okay, so the first thing that we do, as usual, and these motions, after a while, you're going to see that they repeat a lot when you're using apps and dashboards that are already pre-configured. It's kind of the same motions all the time. So there's a rhythm with when you're working with Sumo. So in the plus menu, there is a lot of options. Right now, we are going to focus on the metrics. And when it open, you're going to have, well, you know, something that tells you you're in the Metric Explorer interface. You have usually initially one line that will correspond to a query. You have the magic search button here that once you put your query here and you click here, then things will appear in the middle. There is a timer that you can control for, you know, the time, the window, the period of time you want to see your information for. And there are other things here. I'm gonna build a query first so I can show you the other options that you have here with panel types and so forth. But it's pretty straightforward. I think it's funny that you come here and there is nothing to show, but basically it's telling you what to do. Also, if this is the first time that you are going, probably not here in the training environment, but if you go to your own account and it's the first time that you're using the Metric Explorer, you're going to have like a quick view, quick walkthrough that will tell you exactly what we're going through here, and will refresh that information for you if you need to. Okay, so the first thing that I want to highlight here is that in their query, this how it shows up. It has like something grayed out here. This is metric, filters, and something even that probably cannot even be read. So at this point, it has add an operator. But basically, this is an indicator that the presence of these fields here is an indicator that we are in basic mode. There are two ways to search and using the Metric Explorer UI. One is basic mode, which is this, and then the other one is the advanced mode. If you want to switch to advanced mode, then you just need to click on the 3 dots at the end of that line here and click where it says advanced mode. And the change is subtle, but basically here, instead of having like fields that you can fill out, you're going to have just instructions to enter a metric query. So that's, if you don't know how to write a query, or you don't really understand how your metadata is tagged in when the data is being ingested, and you're still unsure on how that works. This can be a little bit intimidating if you don't know that. But basically what you have here is basically a collection of meta tags that describe basically the data that have been ingested, and then you can use that to filter and do your search. So we're going to go back to basic mode because, again, we're trying to get you going and seeing things and measuring things and monitoring things without too much trouble, right? So I think at this point in the lab, I'm in page 5 on step number 3. And basically here is telling me to select a metric. So if you know your data, you probably can come here and just select whatever that metric is that you want to look at is. There is a lot. Again, that's all depend on how your data is being tagged and whatnot. So there's a lot of stuff that you could do searches for. But when we talk about metrics, we're going to refer to the basic case of you understanding the infrastructure and the status of it. So the metrics that we're going to follow on today are basically going around CPU and memory, because everybody understands what those things are, right? So they're easy to digest. So if you know the name of the metric that you want to follow, you can just start typing. I don't think it's case sensitive, but here you have the one that we're going to practice with is CPU underscore load average 15 minutes. There is also one in the 1 minute and the 15 minutes. I just like 15 minutes because I think it's a decent period of time. So I'm going to click there. I'm going to select that. And let's say that I don't know anything else. I don't know what else to, I just want to see the CPU load. I don't know anything else about this data, how it's being ingested, how it will be represented. I just want to see what we see. And for that is when the, I call it a magic search button comes up, and then you click there. And there you have a lot of time series. So a lot of things matching the query, which basically was very generic. CPU underscore load average, 15 minutes. And I get here the results of every single thing that I'm monitoring and every single CPU that I have configured to have information from, and it's showing here in this list. So you lists sometimes are not very appealing. We also have the graphical representation of your results. And notice that there is a sheer amount of results given by this, just by this query. So 455, that's a lot of stuff. If I wanted to locate a particular server in on site, and because I need to add more memory, or I need to change the CPU, or the CPU needs a software upgrade, this really probably won't take me there that fast. So we need to improve this. But before we go into that, let's gonna take a look to the chart representation. And I think this is my favorite. I guess it's very colorful, but it's also, I think this is a very neat representation of the tsunami of data. Like, there is a lot of stuff here, and it's really almost literally finding a needle in the haystack. But you know, it's possible, I guess. Now, with this, you know, you could, you know, each one of these lines have a reference here in the bottom. You can turn things off, and you know, eventually, if I do this often, then I will get all of them or isolated one of them. But nobody wants to do that. The other thing that you can choose is to, if a line diagram of the time series is not the representation you're looking for, you have an option of doing things using a pie chart. There is the single value, which for this metric probably is not as valuable. You're not gonna get anything there. And there is also the honeycomb. So here, each one of these honeycombs is representing each one of those CPUs we're getting information from. And then you can choose to customize this in terms of like colors, what they represent, and putting, you know, thresholds and so forth in your visual settings. There is also, depending on the panel that you choose, the choices here on how to display the information will change. So you have the equivalent-JSON, you have the legend for it. You can customize the legend for the chart, the Y and the X axis, and displays, and you know, how, and basically you can play a lot on how the panel and how the graphical representation will be on your query. So everybody with me? People give me a thumbs up. Okay. I think I'm gonna move on. So I told you that CPU load average is really like a very high level way of filtering information. The only thing we got isolated is the CPU from pretty much everything else. But if you know, for example, that you're having issues, let's say there is a server somewhere or a machine that is giving you some warnings, and you want to look at how that machine is, how the CPU load is on that machine, you can do that by using another field, by filtering this information a little bit further with using our favorite metadata tag, which is the source category. In this case, I have a colleague of mine has already put his machine available to me. And there is a lot of other machines here. Let's see, host metrics. Let's see if I can. Metrics. I think this is from the other labs. And
Zaragina, there's a question from Terry in the chat. Is there a way to multi-select different series?
I guess so. I'm going to show you next how to add another line here so you can see two metrics and compare to each other in the same chart. I don't know if that's exactly a question, but that's what is coming next.
Yeah, feel free to speak out, folks. This is a workshop. If we were in a room, we'd be looking at each other and talking and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just gonna pick one here. I cannot find the one that is in the lab, but that should also give us something. Okay. So it's not the one I was intended to show you, but it works. We have somebody that probably in the previous lab set up their collector to look into their metrics on the laptop. So that is what we're getting here. Oh, there you go, Gordon. That's you. We're putting you in the spot. Well, isn't that beautiful? Because it's real time, real life. So this is the behavior of your CPU in the last, not your CPU, but your laptop CPU, the last 15 minutes. And so basically that, isolates that from all the others. And just like that, I guess that you could add another line for another host and so forth. That's definitely a possibility. I don't know exactly if that will answer the question, but yeah, put it in the chat. And if I don't get to answer it during the presentation, I will follow up after the fact with a Q&A handout, okay? So anyway, so the next step here is to see, for example, we can add more lines. Like I said, you can increase the you can put other metrics and you can compare them next to each other in the same table. So that is where we add on step 7 on page 7. You can click the plus sign here, and then that will give you another line. So let's say that we want to do the same metric that we had before with everybody in. But this time, what we want to see in the graphic is an average of everything. So you can, at the end of this, I will have one graphic with two lines, one representing the average of everything or everybody versus compared to how this particular CPU is doing. So if I choose to add operator, you have the add operator here. It's not a filter. It's acting on the metrics that we're collecting. So you will switch to average, and then again spin that magic search button. And then we can compare here how the CPU is doing against the rest of the CPUs that we saw before at the beginning, where we have that huge tsunami of information coming through. So, I'm not saying that this is how you will look at it in your environment, but definitely just to show you the capabilities of things that you can do here. It's not in your lab, but also you can, let's say that you want to have a metric display on the first line, a second line, and then you want to add both or get the difference between the two. You can also do math operators in between the time series that you have here. Okay. I think we are good on time. Any other questions? I here see, I think you can click on one of the series on the legend and it will only show you the data for, yeah, that's, I think if you use the filters here, you can silence, I think it's, we call it that particular time series. So this is a cool one. Okay. Okay, so this is just how you get familiar with a metrics explorer, very basic. Like I'm not an expert on the query language, but I was able to gather some metrics from having my data configured currently and then showing here in the metrics explorer UI. So that's pretty cool. Like I said, when I joined Sumo, metrics was the first thing that I got exposure to, and it took me flashbacks to the 90s when I was at a customer side trying to figure out what was going on their machine. So it will have been really great to have this information. So I knew what server I needed to go, what rack I needed to open, and which CPU I needed to upgrade. What is the query language? Okay, let me see. Let me see if I have time at the end. I will show you how this translates into a query because you can see that on the back of everything. But good question. I will put in the back all the way to the end. Okay, great. Just want to make sure I get to cover the other stuff first. Okay, so going back to some slides. I promise it's not going to be too many. Again, the purpose of this class is just to get you using metrics and consuming your DPMs, because you have them, you're paying for them. Like we said, we have a lot of customers. The average of them don't use them all. So it's really good to start playing with those metrics and start monitoring. And metrics is what is one of the pillars of observability. So the metrics, the log, and the traces are going to help get to that reliable state. That is what we always aspire when we are managing these environments. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is to get you working or using some of these metrics that are kind of common, I would say. And basically we're going to do that through apps. And we are going to present you 2 apps on this workshop that will get you quickly some useful information that you can just take back and start using also in your own environments, some tools that you can use. So like I was saying, the pillars of observability, if you have attended some of the observability workshops already, are traces, logs, and metrics. So the logs will be able to tell you what happened and when it happened in an application. The traces will allow you to understand the life cycle of your microservices. And but really it comes down to the metrics to have like the base on how to get better visibility and the insight that you need to understand why something happened, when you have an anomaly, when you have a spike on some data or some KPI. So basically metrics will help you to determine why an incident occurred, and like I said, provide that visibility that will help you to detect severities like in the future. So and this is a challenge that it gets increased by the upcoming of the cloud, the new infrastructure, and the different technologies that are basically emerging, what it seems to be daily these days. And Sumo Logic will provide you a full stack in order to observe them all. So whether it is on premise or in the cloud, we should be able to provide you a great insight when it comes to logs and metrics, and feed all that observability solution that we are trying to make available to you. So like I said, for today, I'm going to keep using the CPU utilization metric as an example. And while I'm going to do that, I'm going to show you 2 apps that can help or that can demonstrate the value of the metrics. One app is a sneak peek, is the host and process metrics app that we should be close to releasing anytime now. And the other one is the MySQL app because, besides CPU and memory, many of you are probably involved also monitoring databases and how they behave and how they perform. So that will be also a kind of a quick gold nugget that you will get from this class. So for apps, I'm going to show you. That's why I didn't go into presentation mode, because I'm switching here. But basically, if you want to see apps, we have on the left navigation bar, again, the app catalog. And there are probably 200 and going apps right now available in the catalog. And so I'm not gonna peruse through all them. I'm gonna go directly to what I wanna show you. If you do a search on host, the first one that is gonna pop up is the host metrics. So the one that I'm gonna show you today is a sneak peek into something that's kind of a step above this one, because it's not only host, but also processes that what that app can gather information on. So remember that before getting even the app installed, you will need to have the sources configured and all that kind of stuff. Remember that step we're not gonna cover here, but we will be, it's covered in the metrics mastery. So we're welcome to attend that one. And I already have it for purposes of time. I already have it here, share with you. So that is what we're gonna do next. And in the lab, I'm now on that number 2, page 8. And what I want you to do is on the left navigation bar, go to the icon that says library. So there is like a clock, a star, a folder with a person that says personal. And what I want you to do is go into the library, and then in the search bar here on the top, do a host. And yes, Johnny, there is a lab guide. I think Lori will post it again in the chat so you can get it. If you join after we posted it, you probably didn't see it. So, so if I do that search, I have it right here. Again, this is a sneak peek. So if you go back to your environment and try to search, you're not going to find it. But here it is. And the cool thing about this app is that it has a lot of different, dashboards that are already pre-created, pre-configured. We have the CPU, disk, memory, network, the overview, the TCP, and so forth. So there are some that are host dedicated, and the others that are more about processes that are happening in your environment. So we are going to start with the overview, because when we don't know where to start, the overview is always a good one. So basically, this is the host metrics overview at a glance. So all that information that we saw before and more, because we only look at one metric, is coming all together into all these into this dashboard with all these different panels. So each one of these things is called a panel. So we have a CPU utilization panel, memory utilization panel, disk utilization panel, and so forth. So there is a lot to look into here. And you probably, sometimes you're like, well, this is a lot of stuff. Where do I start? Well, there must be a reason why you're getting here. So at this point, we're gonna, we're in the same kind of user keys that we have been talking about, which is the CPU utilization. And what is apparent here is that if we look at that panel really quick, is that, apparently there is a CPU that is reporting high utilization. So, and this is where I said that when you work with apps, the motions are pretty much the same. When you want to know more about something that is reflected in the panel, what you just do most of the time is click on it. When you click on it, you get this quick black window that tells you a little bit of information. So here in this case, we can see that it's a 90%. It tells you which host and which host group. And there is like a graphic there with some spikes, but that's really tiny. And I personally cannot read that. So I need more information. So when you click there, the other thing that happens is, the other motion that happens usually is that there is a side panel on the right side of the screen. In this case, this panel shows you summary and entity. So there are different tabs here. So depending on what you're looking at, you will go here. So if you have been in the observability fundamentals, if you have been in the metrics mastery, we always take you through this journey. We see something here, we click on the side, we guide you through where you need to go. Then we find kind of the root of the problem, right? So that's what we're gonna do. But just take in mind that these apps already, all these dashboards and all these insights are being provided because of the app, right? So you didn't have to build all this. If the app didn't exist, you will need to create these dashboards from scratch, which is possible, but why you're gonna reinvent the wheel when you already have it? That's my tip number one. So here quickly, what we do is that we look at this as a person that doesn't know much about this environment. I just see this seems to be relevant. I go into the summary. Well, I don't know what this entity is. I don't know. I'm not familiar to this. So let me go back here because what I know is about infrastructure. So let me check on the CPU metric. So this is the host metric CPU. Notice that this link here is linking to the same dashboard that is on the other side. So if you know your way around, there are different ways to get to different shortcuts to get to the same information. But I like to kind of follow the clue or the crumb trail, if you will. So we click here on the host metric CPU. And then we get directly to the host and the host group that is having issues that we saw earlier in the summary. And then we get more information here. We can also go along for example, here, the CPU usage by process. And then we can see that there is a steady line. There seems to be like one process running on that CPU that suddenly have some oops and downs. And it kind of behaves, it seems to have some issues here. So we probably want to explore that a little bit better. So this is kind of nice because not only you're looking at the CPU level, how the CPU is performing, but also you have an insight into the processes that are running by the CPU and how they're being impacted or how they are performing. With that, there is also a lot of other information here that, as you work for more your metrics and your dashboards, then, you can get probably more insights from that. But for the purpose of the demonstration, what I want just to point out is that if you select this process, because this one is an easy one, is the only one. When we click here, again, the same motion, something opens on the right side of my screen, and then I can get to the process metrics details. So now I can not only learn about my CPU having problems, but I also can learn a little bit more about the process that seems to be experiencing issues, or the process that is consuming the CPU power, right? So I can make a decision on what needs to be done. And then we go here. Basically, we go all the way to the process detail, and then we can see the name, the host group. And we also can see a little more of this information, like who is the user that is running that process. And I think, well, you can look at other things around here. You can see memory usage, read, write bytes, and all that kind of stuff. But here's where I'm going to stop my example, because now I know that I can contact the owner of the process that probably should have a better insight as well on what's going on at his level or what he's seeing. And I can also warn that person that the process consuming all the resources from that CPU. And there is you probably have a handbook of how to, this action, what you should take the next step to resolve. So you can go back to your own handbook of, how you resolve the issues. But, something that if I had gone on site just with like something is happening in the server, getting all these logs and correlating all this data will have taken me probably a whole afternoon, because I will have to make sure it's not a network issue. So I will have the network log. I will have to have the sys log. If it's a Windows machine, I will have to have the Windows log and so on. So trying to nail down all that information, basically it's done here in 5 minutes. It only took me like 3 to 5 motions just to get here. And I think that if you're working against service level agreements and time to restore your operation, this is definitely very valuable. And like I said, I'm gonna date myself, but I wish I had this information back in the 90s when I was at 4 o'clock in the morning on a site. So any questions about this? Let me check the chat really quick. Johnny, I hope that you got the lab guide. If you miss anything, you can go over this later. Awesome, pretty good. And then guys, we're almost at the end. Thanks for sticking with me. Oh, I lied. I have one more thing to show you. I told you that I have 2 apps to show you. So this is the one that kind of looks into infrastructure. We have another app that, for example, if you work with databases, MySQL, MySQL, you can, probably very relevant to you. So this is just an example. Probably not necessarily working with that, but I just wanted to show you the power of the apps and what you can do without having to reinvent or write apps from scratch. You can take our apps, you can modify them, you can customize them, and some of the things are covered in the other certifications, and you can have hands-on on that. So the other app, going back to MySQL, if you open this one, when you install the MySQL app, and again, you can get it from the app catalog that is currently available. You can go, like I said, when you don't know anything, you go to the overview. And basically, I don't know much about databases and whatnot, but basically I know that for SQL databases, there is a lot of things that are important to look at, like if you have clusters, how the replication errors are, how many login attempts are failing, connection errors, slow queries. I think when for databases, searching queries is always one of those that you want to know why your queries are not running or why they are super slow, because that consumes a lot of resources and time. So one of the nice, there's a lot to look at here, but just to give you an example how deep you can go with the app just out of the box. If I have excessive slow queries, for example, like in this case, I can, same motion, you click on that panel, and then on the right side, you get a further information, and you get to your summary, and then you can go and see the panel that's specific for slow, the dashboard that's specific for slow queries. And when you get here, then again, a lot of other information. If you're working with this database, this is probably very meaningful to you, but I'm just going to show you that here you can get the result in your results, the top 10 slow queries by average execution time. So how wonderful that, you can just get a list and it already tells you what are the problematic queries out of your environment. So we get all that data into Sumo. You can create with a query language or basic search or whatever is, your level, you can create powerful dashboards, and that can then bring the visualization like this. And, that is something easy to communicate rather than, hey, look at this log and find whatever error line is in here and then try to figure out what the problem is. So this is, I think, the power of applications out of the box that is also, unleashing the power of Sumo into your environment. So now I'm done with the apps. One last thing, monitoring and looking at this information doesn't do anything if there is no an action attached to it. And that's when we need, monitors. I don't have a slide necessarily for that, but we can jump right into lab number 4 in your lab guide. that is talking about Unified Alerts demo. So I'm going to show you really quick how to create alerts. I will say that be on the lookout for the Spotlight session. There is a new feature that we're releasing this week that I'm not going to be showing you here, but you have a whole demo on the Spotlight session about alert response. And that one, it blew my mind when I saw it, because you will get not only to get to set an alert, but you're going to get context cards that tell you what's happening at the time that you got the alert. So awesome presentation, awesome feature that you definitely want to follow through after this. So I'm going to stop pitching it, but you definitely want to listen to that one for sure. Today I'm just going to show you the classic version, just creating a simple alert, get some metrics being monitored, and give you information when you need it. So if we go to lab 4, page 16, if we go to how we open the alerts or how to create an alert, we go into manage data, and we go into monitoring. I think this menu used to be called alerts. So depending on when was the last time you interact with this might have changed slightly. But then if you open the monitoring, there are 3 options there: monitors, connections, and health events. So we are going to stick with, like I said, the simple case scenario with the monitors. And we're going to click add on the right side of the screen. And there are 3 choices here. We are going to choose new monitor. And basically here you're going to have, it's like a 3-step process. The first one is to choose what you want to monitor. There is logs and there's metrics. So today, because we're in the metrics workshop, we're going to do metrics. The detection method, we're going to leave it to static. I have a whole spiel on what is the difference between static and outlier. For the purpose of this lab, static is what applies. Basically, outliers is when you just want to monitor for those spikes when you don't know exactly when that's going to happen. The static, you have like a a specific threshold condition that is well defined. So that will be probably our case. So you want to know when your CPU is 90% utilized or 85% or so forth. And then here you will repeat the query. So if we go back to the initial query we have at the beginning, and I'm going to choose again your host, Gordon. No, it works. Basically, you can open that query. Oh, that's a lot that we got now there. Oh, because it's 3 hours. Okay, that makes sense. So in our trigger type, we have, this is the next step that you need to follow. You have 3 types of trigger: critical, warning, and missing data. And you can check for both. You can create one from critical, one for warning, and one for missing data if applies. I think in the labs we only tell you to create one for critical and one for warning. And basically what you do is check here and then choose a condition. I think in your lab says equal to 90% for critical and greater than 85% for warning. And you can select the time period you want to watch that for. And then you also have a choice to set a recover action. If there is something that you wanna be alerted when the situation has been fixed. So I'm not gonna do that, but I wanna quickly, because we're running out of time. So in the notifications, you can select if you want everybody to be notified, and what kind of alerts you want to be notified. If it's a critical alert or recovery, warning alert or recovery, or both, you can choose that too. And then you can click on add the notification. And this is where you will monitor details. And this is where you will give a name to your monitor. You will need a name for that. And then you can also specify, set to ask to send you an alert. That's on step page 19, step 1. You can choose the again, who wants to be notified, and then you want to probably provide a description of like, what's happening, and set an email to be sent to you or to somebody else with the alert. Okay. So unfortunately, I'm running out of time, but that is how you do that. You can probably get to finish the lab. The only thing I'm going to remind you is to delete those alerts, because you don't want to probably get a when Gordon gets really busy on that CPU, you're probably going to get alert about him. So you don't want to have emails coming at weird times during the day. We do a cleanup, but if you can clean up after yourself, that is also being appreciated. So what is next? Really quick, I have something important to tell you before you go. Key takeaways. Metrics are cool. Basically, they're easy to create, they're powerful, and they provide you a lot of information. You have a lot of built-in apps that will allow you to get access to your information and be kind of metrics guru right away. And then, of course, the unified alerting is the most simple way to kind of take advantage of those metrics. If you're monitoring something, it's because you want to know what's happening when. So that is that. There are a lot of more options during Illuminate. Get certified in metrics mastery, get certified in observability fundamentals, and also, like I said, watch the spotlight section with AGAT and what's new on alert response. Important thing, if you have attended an observability workshop and be there for the full hour, send this form field, and I think Lori's going to put it in the chat. Fill out the form and let us know about that, and we will confirm and get back to you, and we'll get you a gift set sent to you in the next, I would say, 5 to 7 days. So wait for it. This promotion is valid in most countries except for I believe India, where we have logistics issues there, but feel free to, if you have again attended for the full hour to the observability workshops, to fill out the form there, and you will be receiving your gift set pretty soon. More to come, Quasi-Illuminate. There are cert jams coming up in EMEA, Asia Pacific, as well as US West and East. So always can go to sumologic.com/learn for the latest and greatest training calendar. And with that, if anybody have questions, you can stay a little bit longer, but I don't want to delay you on attending the next session. So thank you so much for being here, and I will follow up on the questions that you put in chat and in an email later. Take care, everyone.